But it's a pretty unique event in terms of policing, because for the first time Chief Constables are sat down in front of the people of the county and they're asked questions both by the Commissioner and by people in the audience.
Do you, I mean, people say they want to have more accountability. People say that they want exactly what you were doing last night. They want to be able to talk to the Chief Constable, the Police and Crime Commissioner, who was also there last night. And sometimes I was talking to people from Essex County Council the other day, and they say it would be nice if people just engaged a bit more. They can have their say.
I think it's crucial. And one of the big issues that came out last night was, with all the savings that police are having to make, does that mean we're going to withdraw from local communities and local neighbourhoods? And of course it doesn't. It means it's going to be more tricky for us. It means that there's going to be less officers, but that means we've got to work harder at making sure we stay connected to local people.
How many less officers will you have over the next year, for argument's sake?
Well, when all the savings started 3 years ago, there was a peak probably of about 3,600 officers. And the likelihood is in the next 3 years, I'm going to work very hard with my team to try and keep us above 3,000.
Have you any flexibility? I mean, can you actually say to central government, I'm sorry, but we need a little bit more money to run the Essex force?
If I do that, I start getting involved in politics. And the one great thing about British policing is I'm not a politician. And I said last night to the public meeting, my job isn't even to be popular. My job is to keep people safe. And you know, there was discussions last night about whether we had to remove the mounted section, whether we had to reduce the marine section, whether we had to reduce the dogs. The reality is, with the budget envelope I've been given, I'll produce the policing that I can for the best of the county. The problem
with talking about the marine section, Essex has the largest coastline in the country. Not only the largest coastline, there's lots of inlets, all sorts of places that crime can be committed.
Yeah, absolutely. And would I have chosen to have reduced the marine section? No, I wouldn't have done. But there are some really difficult choices. This is the most difficult time for policing in a generation. And with 3,200 people going missing every year, with over 440,000 incidents, the 38,000 arrests, hopefully this year for the first time we'll get under 100,000 crimes. So there's some really good news in the middle of all this.
So with all this happening, cutbacks here, there and everywhere, crime is still actually going down.
We're really proud. I mean, my officers are being asked to do more and more on a daily basis. They're getting given new technology in the cars, so they have to stay out of the stations, they have to stay visible. And they're looking at the way that they work with me, with the Police Federation, to try and say, whatever money we get given by government and the PCC, it's our job to make sure we're as efficient as we can be.
Now, there were questions asked, I believe, last night about community support officers. Some people very much against community support officers. They think it's actually policing on the cheap. They think people actually who couldn't get into the police force want to be taken on and... somebody's phone's going mad anyway.
Not me, James, I promise.
Somebody's trying to call the police. I just wonder whether or not PCSOs are a good thing. Are they a good thing in your view?
Well, when they first came out, there were lots of people that talked about plastic bobbies.
Policemen themselves very concerned.
So, yes, absolutely. There was a lot of concern about it. I think it's probably now about 7 years on, and the overwhelming message from the people last night, and this is why it is an important meeting as well, PCSOs are loved. You know, there are connections being made in local communities, and the fact that we've had to reduce officers was discussed less last night than the reduction in PCSOs.
Really?
Because they are the people who have the time to make those relationships, to listen to the problems, and who stay in the communities and make a difference. So
they're separate from the police. You see them, and you think the public should see them as a separate entity to the police.
No, I don't. And I think that's part of the problem of where we've got to. You know, speak to my PCSOs, they want to feel more part of the team. And we're going to have to go to some hubs in the local communities. Rather than having one Bobby remote in a village or a few villages, we're going to have an inspector, a sergeant, the PCSOs and the constables working together across slightly bigger areas, but they'll have more ownership, they'll be more easily contactable. And I actually want to give the PCSOs a bit of teeth, a bit of bite, if you like. You know, when they stop outside to see a parent stop outside of school and they think they're so important they can drop their little bundle of joy off on the zigzags and put the other children at risk, the PCSOs, I'd like to be able to say, if they don't move on very quickly, there's a ticket. I need them to feel like they're part of the team, they've got a bite, maybe even take on small, brief investigations, because I think that helps their credibility and it helps their role in the broader family.
Isn't that going to make them more unpopular if you start giving tickets to mums dropping their kids off at school, however badly they park?
Do you know what I usually think? When you see the children, and 99% of the mothers will go, we've been waiting for you to do that for ages, and I don't have the number of officers I would like to have to do that on a daily basis. It's really important. I think I did 28 years in London. Essex Police are really tightly strung. That there are not that many officers for the demands that they have. So, to use the PCSOs to the best of our ability is really important.
So, would you need would you need a new law passed to actually give PCSOs that power, or would you be able to give it to them?
I can give that to them. What I'd want to do is make sure that's what they want and the community want. But it's a matter of making sure also that the Federation understand I'm not trying to do policing on the cheap. These are not replacement for constables who have particular powers and a particular role in my police force.
Now, one story that comes out over and over again when we talk about policing is the availability of policemen, the availability of going into a police station and finding somebody that you can talk to. So often there's a note on the door, quite often, saying we're closed, we're open between the hours of so-and-so. Quite often you get in and you just can't find anyone to talk to, and they're in difficult places sometimes as well to reach.
You're absolutely right. And of course, the estate for Essex Police, as in other forces, was designed in Victorian times. And of course, the technology we see in this room, smartphones, people expect to access services, access what's happened with their crime or information from the police in a much more modern way. So we're having to look at the estate and decide choices and consequences. Do you want a constable sitting behind a desk that might get visited twice in a week, or do you want them doing 10, 15 calls a day, visible in communities and making contact?
We want them in shopping centres, don't we? We want a police station somewhere in a shopping centre, in a high street, rather than tucked away round the back or in a rather difficult to get into old Victorian building, as you say.
Absolutely. I mean, what we want to do is, whether it's the libraries, the local town halls, whether it's supermarkets, it doesn't matter. Where people congregate, my officers can go and do regular surgeries and people can come and talk to them. I've seen them in Sainsbury's, any supermarket. We don't sponsor one or the other. We're like the BBC. It's making sure that we're visible. And if you can see 500 people in the morning because you're sitting in the front of a supermarket, that's got to be better than sitting behind a desk in a crusty old station.
Yeah. And will this happen? I mean, I don't know, but I presume you have quite a lot of money, or the police have quite a lot of money invested in their properties around the country. You could sell some of these places.
We are. And what I don't underestimate is the symbolism. We have the best police force in the world in British policing. Nobody would have been held to account the way I was last night. Excuse me. So the symbolism of that blue light over a building helps people to know that is a place that they can go to in a crisis. The fact that we don't use them doesn't really matter. When we close one down, the repercussions for local people are significant. We've got to close them down carefully and with consultation of local people.
But you can have that blue light moved somewhere else.
Exactly.
And that blue light should, if you're in, for argument's sake, a supermarket, there's no reason why there can't be a large police sign or the modern equivalent of the old blue light.
It's absolutely right. I love this force. I'm hugely proud to be the Chief Constable, but the estate...
You're an Essex boy.
Essex born and bred, yes. But the problem is the estate has not been invested in, and my IT is out of date. So to give the officers the skills and the equipment to do the job, we're going to have to sell some of our buildings and reinvest them into places that are more accessible to the public and give the officers the right IT.
Lastly, Chief Constable, were you sort of warmed by the response last night? Were you coming away feeling, oh, that was good, I'm glad we did that, I feel better about things? Or did you think, oh my gosh, we've got a mountain to climb?
We have got a mountain to climb. But I tell you what, 90% of the people who asked difficult questions last night also said, we're really proud of our police service. The people of Leigh-on-Sea, or the officers of Leigh-on-Sea, or your officers here do a really good job. They want to help Essex Police be better, and they're challenging because they care.